Hi, everyone. Hi, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for being here today and participating in this workshop. I'm Nabila. I'm the coordination officer here at UNGC MYB, and I will be the facilitator for this session. So should you have any technical difficulties, I'll be happy to help. You can just pop your questions in to the chat box below and I'll help you out. So this workshop is the MAJU Series 1, Part 1 mission, Ready, Get, Set, conducted by our trainer, Izzy Safri. It should last about 1 hour, so from 12 to 1 p.m. So without further ado, I will pass it on to our trainer, Izzy, and enjoy. Thank you.
Right. Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you've had a good day so far. We only have 2 participants. I'm sure the rest will be joining us. Okay. So Jaslyn and Alfred. So today I'll be sharing with you our MAJU framework. So let me just begin with sharing my screen. Okay. So is my screen up already?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this session is going to take 1 hour. Just a word from the sponsor. Sarawak Energy has been very supportive of this initiative to actually sponsor this MAJU framework to enable SMEs to jump on the sustainability bandwagon. So the purpose of the MAJU framework really is to enable SMEs to approach sustainability in a more practical way, because sometimes sustainability can often seem complex for SMEs. Okay, so just a bit of housekeeping. Of course, punctuality is not an issue here. I think that both of you have been very punctual. No disturbances. I would ask that you put your handphones on silent mode. Although I must say that you might hear once in a while my handphone going off, that's the timer. And then if you are unclear, because if we are going to be managing this on a very small audience, then please feel free to actually ask questions. Respect for everyone, and the content will come from you. So in other words, be participative. Let's agree to disagree. So you please express your opinions or concerns, or if you have any questions, please feel free to actually ask them. And then, of course, when we talk about dressing up, I think this is the standard lah. Although the practice that we work from home, I think it's still good for us to practice a proper etiquette when going online. And then, of course, feedback. Be honest in your feedback to us and to the opinions of others. Okay. So a little bit of background on MAJU framework. It was again created, as I mentioned earlier, to enable SMEs to approach sustainability in a very practical manner. So we provide the basics. So it takes you from the mission, activity, the justification, and the upgrading of sustainability. So mission is actually setting the parameters, taking stock of your strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats, and then putting up the framework to manage sustainability. And then on the second part, when you arrive at activity, this is where you actually start doing the activities to enable more sustainable impact. So this is looking at projects that you put in place or programs that you put in place within your organization to reduce carbon emissions, for example. And then justification is basically about reporting. Reporting is everything in sustainability, simply because when you look at setting up your parameters, mission parameters, you have to engage your stakeholders. And you need to continuously inform your stakeholders of what is happening, what is the progress, what are the challenges, and this is where you justify and you report back to them. And last but not least, of course, is the upgrading. So meaning once you have already deployed your programs across the organization, then it is then time for you to actually look on how you are going to raise the bar, how you are going to raise your targets for sustainability. Okay, so let's begin. This is going to be divided into two parts today. We will be doing the SME SDG toolkit, which is the SWOT analysis, and on the second part, we'll be doing the materiality. And these two are the very, very basic foundations for a good sustainability practice within organizations. So it starts off with the SWOT analysis. Before we begin, can I just ask how many of you are actually familiar with SWOT analysis? If you are, let me do a roll call here. If you are familiar with it, type 1 in the chat. If you are not, then type 2. Okay, so I'll just to get a feel of how things are going. Okay, all right, so let's begin. So the sustainability SWOT analysis basically is a strategic tool for you to actually manage sustainability and also innovation. Looking at diagram 1, when you look at the from the bottom, you look at the environmental and social challenges and big trends. These are actually your external factors. And then we move up to the opportunities and threats. Again, these are external factors. And what can you do about external factors? The simple solution is to always keep yourself informed. You need to be doing a lot of reading. You need to follow up on what is happening around you. So in other words, you need to be aware of what's going on with you, because that is actually one of the ways for you to actually manage external threats. And this calls for organizations, no matter how big, no matter how small, for you to look at becoming agile so that you can actually manage yourselves and maneuver yourselves through the external threats. And then moving up, we look at the strengths and weaknesses. These are things which are within your control, meaning if you have certain strengths, you can actually look at how you're going to leverage them. And then if you have weaknesses, you can actually address those weaknesses. So when we talk about internal processes, when we talk about the internal dimension, these are things that you can control. And then we look at how you're going to prioritize the actions for sustainability. And this is basically what the sustainability SWOT analysis does. So the questions that you must ask during these stages from the bottom of the pyramid going all the way up to the summit is looking at who do you want to inform. These are our stakeholders, and this is where materiality matrix comes into the picture. And then you look at what do you and others see changing. This is some of the dimensions that we are going to put into the sustainability SWOT analysis as compared to the traditional SWOT analysis. And then we look at what challenges threaten your future business. Where is there a demand for ideas or solutions? The Sustainable Development Goals actually provide a lot of opportunities. So for SMEs, for startups, these are actually real business opportunities that you should actually look at them. Where can we apply our strength creatively to overcome challenges? Who do we know are facing similar problems or risks? These are all the questions that you need to ask. So why do we want to use the sustainability SWOT analysis? I, for one, find it actually very, very useful in communicating with employees or to engage with your colleagues. So it also helps at every department level for you to actually evaluate your strategies. Because when you look at your strength, when you look at your weaknesses, if you adhere to your set SWOT analysis, then people know how to maneuver. And I find this especially useful in large organizations, where it is important that people can't be communicating every day, but a strong SWOT analysis that is religiously adapted and adopted in the organization can actually help inform and also get people to strategize around the company's strength. Then of course, this is also a very, very good way for you to actually talk to the higher ups, meaning if you wanted to escalate certain issues, if you wanted to escalate certain threats, then this is actually the perfect tool for you to actually build your case, not only for sustainability, but for other purposes. So use the sustainability SWOT analysis as a means to engage your higher ups. And of course, the third one would be convince your bosses, workmates, or suppliers about the potential risk that faces your organization. So these are the three reasons why you use it. But in a nutshell, the SWOT analysis is actually, I would actually recommend using the SWOT analysis as a sustainability SWOT analysis as a Bible to your organization. So this is actually a measure of your organization. Okay, then let's look at how we are going to use the sustainability SWOT analysis. So this is actually a small diagram of the sustainability SWOT analysis. In the next page, I'll be showing you a bigger version of it. So as compared to the traditional SWOT analysis, what the SASWOT, I call it in short, what the SASWOT does is actually it forces the users to actually apply a sustainability lens when using the SWOT analysis, the traditional SWOT analysis. And this actually can be used to actually help drive collaboration, partnerships. It also helps identify business opportunities, risks, and so on and so forth, which is very, very useful. And with good use of this framework, you are able to also identify, or you can also use it to characterize, that I think is a better word. You can actually use it to characterize your organization. And if you use it regularly, then you would be able to actually draw up, I would actually use the term a picture of your organization. And this is very, very useful because in today's fast-paced business world, it is all about creating mental models. So this sustainability SWOT analysis, just like the SASWOT, the SASWOT is actually gaining a lot of ground today in its use. So that basically is in a nutshell what the sustainability SWOT analysis is. Okay, since there are not many of us here, Jaslyn, do you have any questions? Am I going too fast?
No question.
No questions,
Yeah,
all right.
very good, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So when we look at it in application, when we talk about the traditional SWOT analysis, it actually looks at the company's overall strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, and the threats. But as I mentioned earlier, again, what we do here is that we want to force the users to actually use a sustainability lens to look at how to fill up the SWOT analysis. So what we've done is that we've created two bars to the left and to the right, one on each side, to look at the challenges, the trends on the first part, and then we have the programs and actions that you want to take on the second part. So this actually helps you to frame the sustainability from a SWOT analysis. Okay. So this is a bigger picture. So when you look at it, this is the sustainability SWOT analysis. On the first part, it comes in 3 parts in total. So on the left hand side, the pink color is the challenges. So this actually looks at what the environmental, social challenges, and also looking at the big trends. And then in the middle, where you see number 2 there, this is actually the traditional SWOT framework, but it will be used to actually, and it will be used in a way that actually helps you plot input based on your sustainability considerations. And then on the third part, which is on the right hand side, are the priorities and actions. This is very, very critical here, especially in terms of priorities and actions, because when we talk about sustainability, what you want to do is actually move beyond just talking. You want to move just beyond strategy, so you got to actually push for action. All right, so how is it used? Let's go through this slowly. So the SASWAT, on the first part, is we look at the step one, which is the environmental and social challenges and the big trends. So here what you want to do is actually interview people, whether it's internal or external people, and look at interviewing them, talking to them, so that you are able to actually draw up a scenario. So we've provided examples here for raw materials. For example, if you're talking about SMEs, for example, so it may be actually difficult to find raw materials, and then you may have an issue with frequent water cuts due to contamination. Here in Selangor, we've already had twice, I think, this year because of contamination. So we had frequent water cuts, and then too much wastage. It could be flooding, especially if you're in the East Coast, and then unpredictable weather. This may affect, say, for example, even if you're in construction, workers getting tired, and then productivity gets very low during the afternoon. So these are some of the considerations that you want, that you and others actually see changing. And then on the second part at the bottom, what are the big global trends you see that affect life and business? Okay, so these are looking at what we call the global megatrends. More often than not, people actually are just experiencing global megatrends. They know what's happening in terms of say, for example, too much information coming through their handphones. You get too much handphone advertisements. You're bombarded with advertisements, for example, and this is because of digitalization and social media. So people experience it, but they don't necessarily know what is going on. So take some time to actually discuss with people what are the global trends that you see happening. Like, of course, here in Malaysia, because of COVID-19, we've experienced a rise in shopping, for example, online shopping. And then now that the MCO is over, the trend is now going back towards outdoor dining. People dining away from home, meaning dining at shops. You can see all the shops all open now, and then it's crowded. And then even the jam here in Kuala Lumpur is already returned to normal already. And but those are smaller trends. When we talk about big trends, we're talking about digitalization. We're talking about scarcity of resources. We are talking about trends, especially here in Malaysia. Of course, we've had the never-ending political situation. So that is one. And another trend is actually geopolitics. When we talk about the US and China fighting over supremacy and all. So these are some of the trends that actually may affect business. So you want to capture this through discussions. You want to capture this through interviews. Okay. All right. Then we move on to the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. So this is actually how you look at the approach your company is going to take in terms of addressing the challenges and the big trends. So the questions you need to frame that needs framing is, how can your company's strength be used to overcome environmental and social problems? So for example, if you're talking about difficult to find raw materials, so the question here is, when you ask yourself, how can your company's strength be used to overcome environmental and social problems? So as an example, maybe your company actually has got is in the business of data collection, and you have a strong database. So that may be one of your strengths. So then you got to look at whether you can leverage on that strength of having strong data to actually overcome some of the difficulties for you to find raw materials. Can you actually extend your supply chain? Can you actually look at preparing 2 or 3 suppliers, diversification of your supply chain. These are some of the strengths. It can also be like looking at to continue thinking about the strength of your suppliers. For example, if we take too much wastage, you might want to look at your suppliers, because your suppliers also affect your productivity. So you can enter into a program where you look at working even closer with your suppliers to reduce the wastage along the entire value chain. As an example, if your business is promoting a sustainability product, you might want to look at how your partners or your suppliers can work with you to reduce water supply. And then we look at your weaknesses. Who do you know is facing the same problem or issues? Start your list with problems or issues that is caused by environmental challenge. So when we look at weaknesses, again, it's the looking at what is special about these weaknesses in the context of sustainability SWOT analysis. Is that when we look at weaknesses, we are looking at weaknesses within your supply chain or your partners, not necessarily just your organization alone. So when we look at weaknesses, it can be your suppliers can be, say for example, huge or big contributors to carbon emissions. For example, I give you this may not be the best example, but if you say, for example, if you have the option of using electricity from Sarawak Energy, for example, where Sarawak Energy 80% of their portfolio of energy comes from renewable sources. So this is actually a strength. But if, for example, your supply actually comes from the other national supplier, where mostly it's based on coal, then that may be actually a weakness, and you may want to look into renewable resources, such as putting up your own solar panels. And then we look at the opportunities and threats. So this is where you consider working on the issues and challenges before they actually happen. So you need to manage all these opportunities, because again, when we look at the sustainable development goals, there are actually 12 trillion USD opportunities within the sustainable development goals. So people are looking for solutions, the world is looking for solutions. So you got to look at based on the challenges, and when you look at the global trends under the first part on the left hand side, this is where you actually identify the opportunities for business or solutions or services from your portfolio, from your products. And then you look at the threats, where there are environmental or social challenges threatening your business. And then you need to also think of the threats that is common to you and also your supply chain. So when you look at this SWOT analysis here, besides strength, weakness, opportunities and threats in the traditional context, what you want to do here with the SWOT is to actually look at it from a partnership perspective. Right? So when you look at strength, when you look at weaknesses, when you look at opportunities, when you look at threats, don't just look at it more from the internal organization alone, but you look at it from the wider perspective, involving your partners, involving your suppliers, and so on and so forth. That actually would make a very, very good sustainability SWOT analysis. Because you can still use the traditional SWOT analysis to come up with your internal SWOT analysis. But this one is specifically looking at collaboration. All right. And then on the third side is actually looking at priorities and action. So these are looking at how you are going to categorize and how you are going to set priorities for your action. So you will need to actually look at which issues will get the attention of your seniors, because if you are a junior in your company, then you need to actually prioritize it so that you can bring it up, you can bring up the agenda, you can escalate it to your bosses. Then you can tell your bosses, boss, based on our strength, weakness, opportunities and threats, these are some of the common issues that we actually need to address, and we already have partners, potential partners, which are some of our suppliers who we can work with to actually reduce this threat for our not only our business but for the entire value chain. Okay, that's one example. And then from top to bottom, organize issues that give your company the most problems in achieving its vision. So in other words, you may also want to tackle problems that actually give your company the most problems, so that you can remove that as a barrier as quickly as possible. You will also want to look at champions, so that if you cannot actually escalate this to your boss, you need to work with a messenger, because the messenger might have the audience, it might have the attention of the superiors. So always leverage on the messenger who are powerful or influential. And then what you need to do lastly is that look at finding the most urgent and important sustainability issues, so that I've already said this, which is actually to escalate it upwards, bring it up to the attention of your superiors. Okay, then you start to move into the action. Okay, so you need to consider what are the resources you need. You can look into the 4M framework: man, money, method and machine. So this is actually a way for you to look at how you are going to talk to your boss in terms of telling them that, okay, on top of the problems that we've identified, these are the top priorities and these are the resources that we can actually allocate. So you come up with solutions before you actually tell people about problems, then provide them with solutions as well. And then you organize the actions you will take into do it now, or what you should do a bit later, what you can do much later. So this is actually prioritizing your actions, because sometimes when you chew too much, when you bite off too much, then you can chew, then the entire thing will collapse. So what you want to do is take it small, baby steps, and then make sure your bosses and friends at work agree to the actions. So when you carve an action plan, you want to get everybody on board, because if you don't get everyone on board, then you will find that your sustainability priorities and then its actions might die a slow death. And then slowly but surely you need to actually aim high, but make sure that it is possible to achieve. So you need to actually renew your priorities, and when you look at your actions, you need to actually improve it as time goes by. Okay, so here are the tips and tricks on using the sustainability SWOT analysis. Tip number one is that you may be exploring risks posed by climate change, but the exercise can actually be used to reveal so many other things about your company. Some things that you might not have actually considered, some things that you might have not noticed, or something that actually is hidden and can now be brought to the surface. So take your time to actually complete the SWOT, because I think and I believe that it can really show the character of your company. When we talk about characters, when we talk about characters, every character has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. I'm not supporting, for example, Saddam Hussein, but in a country like Iraq, where there is always many tribes, warring factions, and so on and so forth, sometimes you need a strong leader. You need someone with such a character. And then when you go into, say, for example, another country where, say, for example, you have a monoculture, or you have a mono race, just one race, homogeneous, a different type of leader is required, calling for different sort of characteristics. And what comes to mind, say for example, is, say for example, when you talk about Japan, when you talk about South Korea, more of a very homogeneous society, requires a different set of leadership with different set of characters. And you can see these characters actually in across so many disciplines. Especially when you look at teachers. Teachers, you require a different set of character, and accountants are very hawk-eyed. They will study everything in detail. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the SASWOT may point to unexpected partnership opportunities. Again, when you look at the SASWOT, one, the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, you have to frame it in the context of looking for partnerships, looking for collaboration. It may just actually open up new opportunities for you in providing new solutions for the sustainable development goals. So that is actually one of the strengths of the SASWOT. Number three is that start with challenges that are shaping future markets and identify areas which such challenges are creating large unmet needs. Again, as I mentioned, the SDGs provide up to 12 trillion USD in opportunities. But many of our SMEs here today are not actually looking at solutions for the sustainable development goals. Today, you have increased awareness among society, looking for more ethical companies. They want relationships. They want to create relationships. They want to consume more ethically. So these are opportunities for you. One good example, which I think is already quite crowded, is actually renewable energy. When we talk about solar power, so the entire industry is looking. Industries are actually looking to jump on the renewable energy bandwagon, but there are so many other opportunities in the SDGs. So look at the market opportunities, and I think especially here in Malaysia, there are still a lot of unmet needs. And then consider where challenges together with big trends may result in cost changes and consumer preference markets changes. So you need to look towards responding or resonating. Your products or service actually need to resonate with the consumer's preferences. And then number five, some ideas are ahead of their time. There were many instances where a lot of good ideas that were promoted or that were launched a couple of decades back did not actually succeed, but today they are successful. I don't know whether some of you noticed that many years back, I think it was about 20 years, I think probably about 15 years, maybe 15 years ago, Subway, the sandwich franchise, actually appeared here in Malaysia. I think it was about 2 decades ago. But I think consumers were not ready for it. So they had a couple of outlets, and surely enough, because our community were not sandwich eating community, they all closed shop. But then I think about 5 years ago, it came and it boomed. So some ideas are not ready. Some ideas are ahead of its time. So the sustainability SWOT analysis can be used to actually for you to consider looking back at some of the businesses that were viable, were not viable back then, but may be viable today. And then number six, identify opportunities to work closer with other like-minded companies. Nothing drives sustainability better than passion. If you are going to go into sustainability simply because it is the right thing to do, you might actually lose steam moving forward. But if sustainability is founded on passion and you meet up with other passionate people, like-minded organizations, then the sky is the limit. Then you start talking, and a lot of benefits can be derived from this, looking at how you can actually, both companies can actually share resources, can look at co-marketing and so on and so forth. So these are some of the opportunities where you can use the SASWOT to identify opportunities to work and to collaborate with each other, even competitors. And then consider a wide range of partners who may face similar risks within and outside of your industry. Today, when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, when we talk about climate change, it's no longer enough for you to actually work within your industry, but there are a lot of merit to looking outside of your industry for solutions, because some people may not look at A and B as being complementary, yeah? But there may be certain things that B may be able to produce, may be able to design, that actually helps with sector A or segment A, yeah? So this is actually where you use the SASWOT to actually look at a bigger picture and reaching out to other segments, even competitors. Last, of course, is the someone you know may be able to better champion your cause. So you need to connect with influencers. I've had that experience many times before. Sometimes it's very difficult to actually engage with your bosses. Sometimes maybe for bosses it's difficult to actually engage with your subordinates. So you may want to use an intermediary, someone who has the influence over these people, to actually engage them, not only to complete the SASWOT, but also to put the SASWOT in practice. So that's the end of our SME SDG toolkit. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. We are now 12:37. Do we want to take a short break, 3 minutes break? If anyone needs to go to the restroom. Okay. Okay, then let's move on. We've got another 23 minutes to go. The last segment is actually talking about the guide to materiality. As I mentioned earlier, the SASWOT together with the materiality actually make the foundation for good sustainability practices within organizations. So these two are really the start point for you to work on your sustainability approach. So what is materiality? In my own terms, I put it, materiality is actually looking at the threats and opportunities, not only from your perspective, but from the perspective of your stakeholders. So why is materiality important? When we look at materiality today, following COVID-19, following the health pandemic, I think we can all agree that business relies on society. The question that was often debated was if companies, businesses are responsible for society. Do they have to actually care for society? However, I think COVID-19, the learning from COVID-19 is that no business can survive without a functioning society. So if we can all agree to that, then materiality is your answer. Materiality actually looks at identifying what are the issues of your stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I mean your entire stakeholder universe, from your staff to your suppliers, to your distributors, to the government, and even to your bankers, for example, your funders, and even to the consumers. So these the stakeholders I mentioned may represent the strata of your entire stakeholder universe. So when we look at materiality assessment, it is actually taking stock of what the concerns are for the various group of stakeholders. They may not be the same, they may be the same, they may be aligned, they may be misaligned. So this is actually where it's important for you to take stock of your material issues and organize it in such a way where you can manage it properly. So this is what materiality matrix is really all about, and this is what it does. Materiality. Okay, so how is it useful? materiality matrix, I call it MM. So MM actually helps to provide information for drafting strategy. This is very key because today when you talk to consumers, when you talk to stakeholders, they all have different needs. So there is no one size fits all approach to business today. If you want to continue to do business, if you want to continue to remain relevant to your stakeholders, you need to remain relevant and you need to respond to them. Because otherwise, as a brand, for example, if your brand no longer resonates with them, they will leave you and leave you for your competitors. Number two is that you want to look at improving relationships with everyone, important to your business. So you can organize your relationships in terms of its communication, in terms of its engagement, in terms of what to say, what not to do, how to prepare for your presentation based on your stakeholder concerns. Because when you look at your stakeholders, when you talk to consumers, you cannot be talking to consumers like you're talking to your banker. Your banker will be very, very financially skewed, but conversations with consumers will have to be of a different tone. And then it also helps you communicate with authorities. These are people important to your business. Again, when you talk about government, for example, they are increasingly changing policies to actually meet with what the rest of the other world is actually doing. So critically, very important for Malaysian SMEs today is when our trading partners, such as China, such as Korea, or such as US, when they are changing their environmental regulations and policies, we also need to respond. So this is where you need to continuously engage with the government or governments in this case to ensure that whatever you talk to them, whatever that you approach them with is actually relevant to them and resonates with them. So what are the benefits? Carefully executed materiality process can help you with identifying trends, opportunities, so that you can actually stay ahead of the business, stay ahead of the curve, or even stay ahead of your consumers. So if you can identify the trends that affect your stakeholders before they even know it, you can actually provide the solutions. And then you can also use it as a means to look at how you're going to manage your resources. Resources need to be managed. So there's no point of you actually putting in too much resources into one area when it is actually not a big material issue for your company, not a big material issue to your stakeholders. So use it actually to look at how you're going to manage your resources. You can also use materiality to look at managing stakeholder issues. I remember when I was in Johor Bahru working for IRDA, Iskandar Regional Development Authority, we use materiality matrix very extensively to manage the various stakeholders from the palace to the Orang Asli to the people of Johor Bahru and various segments of society, from the silverhead to the youth and so on and so forth. So we use the materiality matrix extensively. So we manage disputes here so that when we approach them, we also complement it with a stakeholder engagement plan. Meaning if we have already identified an issue, we approach them, we tell them, okay, this issue we acknowledge and it will take about 6 months for us to actually resolve this issue. And that is how you actually use a materiality matrix to the best, when you actually have or you produce a stakeholder engagement plan around the various stakeholders. And then you identify what people like and dislike about dealing with your company. Some people don't like dealing with certain authorities. Some people don't like dealing with your sales department. Some people don't like dealing with your after sales service. So these are actually a tool that you can use to identify what are the major concerns and how you can actually address them. Okay. So how do you use the sustainability materiality matrix. Yeah. So step one is to identify your stakeholders. Okay, this is actually very easy. What you need to do is think of everybody that you do business with. Okay, so it can be Achong, it can be Mutu, it can also be Rahim. So you put everyone, of course, represented by their organization. So create a list. It can be as extensive as you want. The more extensive, the better, because what you want to do here is ensure that you have considered everyone. So that is step one. So you also got to look at it. You can look at it from environmental, economic, or social perspective. That is the thinking process. You can actually look at using various frameworks to identify your stakeholders, whether they are government, private sector, or even consumers, okay, or the public. You can also look at them from people, planet, and profit. So using the sustainability framework. So you just identify everyone, because what you want to do here is actually create a long list. Okay. So once you've done that, then you start to identify your indicators. When you start talking to them, you will then identify what are the issues. So this is what we call the indicators. So in step two, identifying the indicators, once you start talking to them, then you start identifying what are the issues. So what you have right now is you have a list of stakeholders, and then you have a list of indicators, or a list of, let's just say, issues rather than indicators. So now you have a list of people and organizations, and step two, you have already identified what are the issues or indicators that you see here. Step three, what you need to do is you can conduct a survey. It can be a very short survey. You can send it over Google using Google Forms. It's best to ensure that the survey is actually done in a very simple way. Keep it to nothing more than 10 questions, for example, and then you send it out, get feedback. Now you can actually start looking at how you are going to organize it. So what you want to do here is that you have already identified the indicators. You put the indicators based on XY matrix. So you got to look at the significance of the social environmental impact from low to high. So say, for example, if gender equality or carbon emissions or wastage is actually a material issue, where it is highest, then you put it at box where you see number 9 there. And then the lesser it gets, then it goes down all the way to indicator 1. One way of actually doing this, an alternative way, is actually once you put down the indicators, then you start to look at placing your identified stakeholders close to the indicators. So meaning, for example, if say for example indicator 1 is wastage, let's just assume within your industry there is a lot of wastage, and you've identified stakeholders who can contribute to it, who are concerned about it, who can do something about it, then you put them close to your indicators number 9. Okay, then let's look at, say for example, indicator number 1. Say for example, again, this may be a bad example, but say for example, if gender equality is not an issue, simply because say for example, within that industry, oil and gas, for example, on the platform, maybe not a lot of women like to work there, maybe the situation is dangerous, maybe because of the very poor balance. So maybe, I'm not saying that it's not a concern of yours, but if it's not a concern of the stakeholders, so let's just say indicator 1, gender equality is not an issue, or when I say gender equality, I mean numbers lah. I'm not talking about the full dimension of gender equality in terms of pay and so on and so forth. But let's just say we're talking about the balance of number of women versus men. So if that is not an issue, then you put it under indicator 1, and then you can surround it with the stakeholders around that. Okay, now you may have competing indicators, you may have competing stakeholders, so you cannot put the same, for example, stakeholder in indicator 9 but at the same time on the same issue, or for example on a conflicting issue you put them also in indicator 1. So what do you do under those circumstances? Because when you start moving your stakeholders about, when you start moving your indicators about, you would want, what you would want to do is to ensure that there is no conflict. Because just like again, when we talk about the sustainability, SWOT analysis, when you talk about strengths and weaknesses, a lot of times people say this is strength A is, for example, trust. That is one of your strengths. But in your weakness, you may have a problem with certain issues pertaining to latecomers to work, for example, or you may have an issue of, say, for example, talking about certain things that actually are pointing towards distrust. So on one hand, you say your strength is trust, and then on another hand, you're saying your weakness is actually distrust. So these are conflicting. So what you need to do under such circumstances, just like the materiality matrix, you need to actually decide based on strengths of that particular issue and that particular indicator, and only include the stakeholder around that indicator. So that is how you, in other words, you need to actually weigh both and then decide on which is the most important, and then you put it in a particular indicator, the stakeholder to a particular indicator, rather than putting them all over the place. So you need to actually be looking at the materiality matrix. It requires fine-tuning. You may not get it right first round, but as you start to discuss more and as you start putting it into practice, then you will find that certain indicators may actually go up, may actually go down, but this is all part of the process of materiality anyhow. Because when we talk about materiality, it is all about doing materiality study regularly. Because today, when you look at COVID-19, 2 years back, many things were not an issue. But after COVID-19, this is actually a good time for you to not only, if you don't have your materiality matrix, this is actually a good time for you to renew your materiality matrix, because things have changed. Your consumers have changed. Your partners have actually changed. So once you have plotted everything, this is what it looks like in terms of the materiality matrix managed on a 2x2 matrix. So say for example, this is using the SDGs an example. So when you look at the boxes here, when you look at high, and you see sustainable development goals 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 11, 14, 15 and 16, these are what we call the indicators. Then you can plot your stakeholders around this issue. So maybe under when we talk about so when we talk about life below water, for example, then you want to put your stakeholders around life below water. When we talk about decent work and economic growth, this may be your employees. When you talk about industry innovation and infrastructure, this may be local governments. This may be your partnerships programs that you go into. When we look at sustainable cities and communities, this can also be consumers, for example. So this is where you plot your stakeholders. So this is using the Sustainable Development Goals as an example to simulate the materiality matrix. So the pro tips around the materiality matrix is a survey, media research, internal documentation, and so on and so forth. You can go and visit this website to actually find out what are the sustainable development goals that you may want to use as a starting point for your materiality assessment as a materiality indicator. You may start off the materiality matrix by actually talking to your suppliers, your friends, by saying that are they familiar with the SDGs? My company is now looking at becoming more sustainable. We are part of this world. We are part of the solutions. So I'm inviting your company also to work with me. And what are the issues that your company faces if you're talking to your suppliers, so that they can start identifying what are the so that you can start identifying what are the indicators relevant to your suppliers and so on and so forth, whether it's your employees, whether it's the government, and so on and so forth. Okay. And then tip number 2, when plotting the indicators, you can use colors. Of course, you can use colors to differentiate certain segments of stakeholders. You can use different diagrams or shapes to actually point out towards whether the issue is a current, a future. So you can use various diagrams, various shapes to actually indicate various levels of various components that you want to tell. For example, you may use a small round circle to say that this issue is dwindling or is slowly dying or is slowly becoming a non-issue. You may want to use a big circle, for example, red color, to show that this is urgent. So that is how you can actually use various methods to actually show more information on your materiality matrix. You can also use it to actually understand issues and issues company impacts at the local and the local level and the regional level. So say for example, your SME is into manufacturing steel bars and you produce a lot of smoke, for example. So you can actually use this to look at how your business is actually impacting on the local community. Because I remember I grew up in SS2 Petaling Jaya. Right behind me was actually a factory that was producing steel bars. So every day we get this black soot on our floors. So that was really, really bad. But back then nobody cared. It was all about producing. But today people just don't get away with it anymore. Last is also to look at materiality as an opportunity for you to collaborate, because this is actually very, very good for you to engage with people, invite them in, discuss about it, and come up with possible solutions that you can work together. And I think you would actually find better relationships, better partnerships, and build trust around your stakeholder value chain. Okay, so let me, there's a bit of a problem this time. So here are the insights. You may be exploring risks posed by climate change, but the exercise could reveal a growing need for a new business model. And materiality matrix is great, very, very good at that, because you can use it to look at how you are going to approach climate change. You can actually use it to actually identify business opportunities. And you can also look at sorry, this was a mistake, to point unexpected partnership opportunities through the materiality matrix, as I mentioned earlier. You can start with challenges that shape future markets. You can consider where challenges together with other big trends may result in cost changes, and so on and so forth. We are already at 1 o'clock. So I will make this available for anybody who wants the slides. Nabila will send it out to you. So that's it. We're at the end of our session. This is 1 o'clock. If you have any questions, maybe I can just take 1 or 2 questions. Okay. Any questions? You can type it in the chat box. Okay, so I think everybody is ready for lunch. So thank you very much. Okay, wait, we have one question here. Okay, so in parting, thank you everyone. So in parting, what we'd like to say is that from UNGC, YB, thank you very much. We are very happy to have had you here with us during this SME sustainability SME SDG festival. And whatever I've shared with you today is available on our website. You can go to ungcmalaysia.org, where you will find not only the MAJU framework with all the extensive tools that we've provided, but you can also look at our other tools like climate change and so on and so forth to help you with your sustainability journey. Yeah? I'm just going to take, we've got a couple of questions here. Number one is, during materiality assessment, is it important to allocate weightage to your stakeholders? Yes, it is. It is possible to do, but whether it is important or not, it is something that only you can answer. Because if you wanted to put a weightage, I think it helps provide more dimension. It provides more information to your stakeholder materiality assessment. Personally, I think it is actually good for you to put some sort of weightage. Just like weightage, you can use certain diagrams, as I mentioned. You can have a 4-stage diagram, for example, in terms of size or maybe thicker lines, so that you can identify the intensity. So maybe you want to, if your weightage is basically 0 to 25, maybe 26 to 50, 51 to 75, and so on and so forth. You may have different sizes to actually indicate the weight of the material issue. That is a very, very good question. I would encourage you to actually to look at providing more dimensions or more information through the use of various visual tools that you can. So that was a very good question. Thank you very much, Stephen. Again, the short answer is yes, you can do it. You can allocate weightage to your stakeholders. And then we have one more question here. Among all the targeted SDGs, which of the SDG are the most critical to assist? Okay. Today, if you were to look at WEF, they conduct regularly. In fact, every year they do a risk assessments for the entire world. So they interview CEOs globally. Five years back, climate action was very low in terms of risk. But today, out of the 10 indicators, I think easily about half of it actually points towards climate change or climate risk. So if you ask me what are the SDGs important, I would say it is actually climate change, because that is the root of all our problems. It can affect our education, our infrastructure, our security in terms of food security. It can affect our water supply. So start with climate change first, because it is basically an urgent action that is required, and we only have the next 8 years, and this is very important, ladies and gentlemen. We only have 8 years to the 2030 goalpost, and the 2030 goalpost was not drawn up simply or picked up from the plucked up from the sky, but 2030 is actually a window, because if we don't address climate concerns, if we don't address climate change, sustainably, then we would have runaway climate change beyond 2030. So we must reduce our carbon emissions. We must control climate change within these 8 years to put us on a more sustainable path. Okay, then last question. The MAJU toolkit assists on direction of SDG. How do we measure the impact? Okay, for SMEs, when we talk about measuring impact, the SDGs, there are 17 goals, correct? And there are various indicators, and the indicators may not be relevant to you, but that is not a problem at all. The message that I want to carry and that I want to deliver to SMEs is that don't think in terms of doing certain indicators or measuring based on certain indicators, and then you find that it's not relevant, or you become very confused because the indicators are very difficult for you to meet, or for you to crunch the numbers to get the indicators. I think for SMEs, you can put all that aside simply because there are certain indicators which are not meant for you. Simply put it that way. When you talk about governments, governments have their own responsibility. And then you have businesses, then you have communities. You don't want to take on the KPI or the indicators or the measurements which are not relevant to you simply because that is the job of someone else. Just like your organizational KPI, don't go and put your finger in other people's business because you cannot control those KPIs. So you only concern yourself with what you can control. So sustainability for SMEs is not so much about measuring yourself against the indicators, but sustainability for SMEs, in my opinion, is actually making that step towards sustainability by looking at doing good first, because sustainability has got 17 dimensions in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. But when we talk about climate change, you can look at climate change actually impacting on all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So what you want to do is take simple baby steps first. So the MAJU framework actually helps you look at approaching sustainability at a very nascent basic stage, and then you can take your steps to improve yourself as you go on. So again, don't worry too much about measuring your impact against the Sustainable Development Goals indicators, because they are not necessarily meant for you. But it is enough if for an SME for you to look at your contribution, say for example towards climate change, for example, it's enough for you to look at what are the savings that you are making in terms of reducing power consumption. What are the savings you have made in terms of reducing your carbon emissions? That should be enough. They may not be an indicator in the Sustainable Development Goals that directly relates to you, but that actually should be enough, because again, the most important thing, the most important thing here is that it will be the government that will be taking data from you to Department of Statistics to actually report on the overall country's carbon emission. So you only need to worry about doing. The government will actually be measuring the Sustainable Development Goals based on the output of the entire nation. Okay. However, if you look at Malaysia's voluntary national report for the Sustainable Development Goals, we have done a study. UNGC has done a study. We did a survey where you can look at what are the relevant SDGs to businesses, because not all the SDGs are relevant to businesses. So go and look for the voluntary national report, or we call it the VNR 2021. We have recommendations there based on UNIDO's study. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So do visit our website. You can download everything. Everything is for free. So make use of it. Thank you very much. Okay, Nabila, over to you.
All right, that marks the end of our MAJU Series 1 Part 1 workshop. Thank you all again for participating, and we hope this has been of value to you. We will be sending over and sharing our recorded Zoom meeting now, as well as the slide deck that Easy has delivered. So have a great day, and we hope you join all the other workshops as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.